Misty is a certified teacher who taught middle school in CCISD for 8 years before deciding to stay home with her children. She has 3 sons that she's been homeschooling for the past 12 years. Without further ado, she is going to talk to us tonight about Homeschool 101.
Like Judy said, I'm Misty Beardsley. I have been homeschooling my 3 children since they got into school. So they have never been in public school, but I do know about public school because I was a teacher there. So I'm going to go through a few things that this is for Homeschool 101. So I kind of feel like I'm speaking to the people who are newbies. Of course, you may get some ideas if you're kind of new, but maybe you started last year. And some seasoned vets like to watch these too, just to see if they pick up any new tips. So I'm going to go over real quick a few things about homeschooling in Texas. So there are 2 organizations, and if you're watching this, you might want to take some notes in a couple of areas. I didn't have a real conference to pass out notes. So there are 2 organizations that are very important to homeschooling. And here are the websites for them. Okay, let me make sure I have that where you can see it. Oh, it's probably backwards maybe. Okay, the first one is hslda.org, and that's the Homeschool Legal Defense Association. And that's actually for the whole nation. The bottom one is thsc.org, and that's the Texas Homeschool Coalition. So this one, it's both of these you can join, and they help you with a legal defense if you ever need it. They're just really good to help support you in homeschooling, and they have a lot of ideas on their website. So those are 2 great places to go to get information. If you're in Texas, this one for sure. If you're in another state and are watching, even though this is a Texas conference, is you could go to this one and they would tell you about your state. So there's links to different states on that website. Okay, so in Texas, Texas is so easy to homeschool in. And so there are 3 things that the state law says you must do. Okay, the first one is that your instruction must be bona fide. So in other words, you are not just taking your kids out of school and plopping them down in front of a TV. You are actually giving them instruction, okay? It's not a sham. Number 2, the curriculum must be in visual form. So it's not just all, you can't just, read. You can't do it just in auditory. They have to be able to see it. Books, workbooks, videos, a TV screen or a computer monitor, because some classes are online. That's number 2. And then number 3 is that you have to have your curriculum must include the 5 basic subjects. So this is from Texas law. The 5 basic subjects are reading, spelling, grammar, mathematics, and good citizenship. So you may feel like, I feel like that kind of leaves out some subjects because they didn't talk about science, they didn't talk about history, even though I kind of put good citizenship under history because you need to know history to be a good citizen. They didn't talk about PE or music or art, things like that. So those are not in the actual law. However, most teachers, homeschool teachers, moms and dads, do teach those subjects. So we'll go through some of that in your curriculum later. So as you can see, the Texas law is very wide open. They give us freedom of choice. We can choose what to teach our kids. And so it makes it great. Texas, best state there is. So the current law says they're pretty much going to hands off of homeschoolers, let them do their thing. Besides those 3 things I told you, they don't do much. They consider homeschoolers a private school. So many times homeschoolers name their schools. So, if your last name is Jones, you could be Jones Academy. You can name your own school, but you don't have to. So you do need that. So they call you a private school because they're not regulated by the state of Texas. Private schools aren't either. So you don't have to register with the state or a local school district. So let's talk about that for a minute. If you're already schooling, if you are in a school district right now and you want to take your kids out to homeschool, you need to let the school know that you are taking them out. You have to do that, or a lot of times they'll still consider them enrolled. In fact, I've known some people who have taken their kids out and different things have happened, like 2 weeks into school, they're like, where are your kid? Where's your kid? So you need to legally take them out of school. And one place that's great for that is this website, the Texas Homeschool Coalition. This one may have them on there too, but I really like the one here. They have an actual letter, like a form letter, that you could just copy. Of course, read it before you decide that you're going to send that. And then you need to send that to your school, your actual school. So lots of people say you need to email it to them nowadays. It used to be that they would want you to make a certified copy, and you can also, send it certified mail, which you could do that also. But you need to send it to the school office, to the district administration building, and make sure that you keep it for your own personal records. And I would send one to the principal of your school also. So you should be able to find those email addresses online on your school's website, but make sure that you send that letter. Now, I have known parents who have been contacted by school districts and told them once they sent this letter that they needed to come in and sign a letter saying different things, like that this school district can come in and look at your curriculum. That is against the law. They cannot do that. So do not sign anything like that. All you have to do is give them the letter that says you are withdrawing your child. That's pretty much what the letter says on the THSC website, to homeschool them. So make sure that you withdraw them if they're in public school. If you are just starting homeschooling, so your kids are in kindergarten, you don't have to do anything with the school district. In fact, like I said at the beginning, I have only ever homeschooled my kids, and I have never sent anything to the school district here in Corpus Christi where we live. So there's nothing that you have to do there. Some people ask about graduating your child. That's probably more in the high school, if they're going to have the high school conference on this one. But you are basically the one who makes the transcript for your kids. For colleges, you're the one who gives them their graduation, gives them their diploma. So I have not actually graduated a kid yet, but I know many people who have. My oldest is about to be a senior this year, and my youngest is going into 9th grade. So if you're in high school, you may want to look into some of our high school homeschooling stuff. Just let me know if you have a question over what I've gone through already. Okay, even if it's not what I'm talking about now, you can send in your questions. Okay, next part I was going to go over is your curriculum. So many new homeschoolers ask, what curriculum do I use? Well, that's up to you and what you do. And when your kids are very little, kinder, first, second, it's very easy curriculum. In fact, I would say you don't really need to buy too much. You want to, of course, get your kids started in learning how to read and things like that. And there's lots of things online. I think our next speaker is going to talk a little bit about some online stuff that you can find. You know, y'all may have heard of ABC Mouse. There's lots of commercials for those. And so those are some things for the little bitty kids. And a lot of that stuff isn't even, when they're very young, you don't need to spend a whole day with them doing instruction. That's probably not good for them. And we'll go over some of the times to spend on kids in a little bit. But some of your curriculum that you can look into is there is actually a public school homeschool, which is called K-12. You can look that up. In Texas, it's called K-12. But you are in a public school when you're enrolled in that. I think you can pay for it and not be enrolled, but I don't know all the details of that. But I know that if you're enrolled, you are still required to take things like the STAR test and things like that. So just pay attention to what you're doing if you get into K-12. There's free things on the internet, all over the internet. So you can Google search for those things. I think Belinda coming up next is going to talk about a little bit of those things. There are two websites that I use a lot to buy curriculum, and that is christianbook.com. And they have a little homeschool tab, and it has it will say math, and it has all the different math books. It will have a history underneath there and have all these different history books. It has great things that you can see in it, so you can go into the book and actually look through it, see if it's what you think you have. Many of them have grade levels on it, so it will say 3rd grade math, so not too much for you to worry about missing out on that. The other website is Rainbowresource.com. That's one that sells books also and sells curriculum. Now, both of those are new curriculum, so they could be a little bit more pricey. Some, depending on how big of a curriculum you get, there's some that will do it all for you, where you can buy a whole year's worth of curriculum, and that's going to be more expensive, and you're buying everything from them. Most homeschool moms that I know that teach their children mix and match things. So they find something like teaching textbooks for their math kid, and or Saxon math, and then they'll do a Bob Jones history or something different with science. So you do not have to do the curriculum throughout everything. If you want used products, you can, I find a lot of things on eBay. Now, I've been doing this for a long time, so I kind of know what I want, or I've seen it, or I've borrowed it from some mom to say, hey, can I look at that to see if that's what I'm going to like? And then I'll go on to eBay and buy it. But you kind of may want to know exactly what you're looking for when you put in those words for eBay for what you want. There are also accredited programs. So accredited means that pretty much anybody's going to take that these kids actually did the work that is on there. So ABECA is one that's, I think a lot of people considered it a little advanced, and it's accredited, but you're paying for that accreditation too. So I think they have one where you can buy it without the accreditation program, and then they have another one where it's accredited. And those are very easy to go in and out of the public schools with, especially in high school, because they are accredited. But you are going to spend money for that accreditation. If you're worried about, am I doing everything that my child's 3rd grade teacher down at the public school is doing, you can go online, and easiest way to tell you this is just to Google TEA, Texas Education Agency, TEKS, TEKS. Now, these are the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills. And if you just Google TEA TEKS, you can find out they have what every child is supposed to be learning in public school, and it will go by grades and by subjects. So if you want to check out what 3rd grade math is, then they are very long. They are a lot of information. But you can go in and look at, what am I supposed to teach a 3rd grader in history to know, or social studies at that age. And they go all the way through all the grade levels. So I remember when I first started out, I was very used to TEKS because I was a public school teacher. And so I looked at those quite a bit. Now, as I've gotten through homeschooling a lot, I realized that took a lot of time, and I kind of quit doing that because I got more confident in what I was doing at home. So that is the basics for curriculum, is that you can use whatever you want to use. Oh, I know what else I was going to say was, I told you online places to buy stuff, but here in most towns, we're out of Corpus Christi, most of us, so Mardel is a great place to get curriculum, and you can look through a lot of it. Some of it's shrink wrapped, so it's harder to, but you can look through it. When they're very little, there's lots of things at just Barnes and Nobles or Half Price Books. Half Price Books actually has a whole section of textbooks and things like that, and even workbooks for little kids. So if you are, when my kids were little and learning spelling, I just got a spelling books from Barnes and Noble, spelling workbooks. And so that's what I went through with them for their spelling lessons. So, but other people you can do whatever you want. There could be actual spelling textbooks and things like that. But I found when they were younger that the workbooks worked well for us. So we didn't spend a lot of money on a big curriculum. Okay, so that is it for my curriculum part, I think. Okay, let me just check through this real quick. Okay, so let's talk a little bit along the lines of curriculum. Is a friend of mine put this up on Facebook the other day about how much time you should be spending schooling at homeschool. So I'm sorry, it's backwards. I should have gotten a mirror to reflect it. Okay, so this says preschool is 15 to 30 minutes. That may seem like such a short amount of time, but really with the young kids, a lot of their learning is in play. So with math, you may be playing with dolls and counting their teddy bears or their stuffed animals, or taking away their stuffed animals. Super simple. This is preschool, remember? So 15 to 30 minutes is plenty of instruction time. You can always do that if you feel like that's not enough time, do it in the morning, do it in the afternoon, but you do not want to be getting your kids frustrated by making a 4-year-old sit at the kitchen table for too long. Okay. Then the next one, the kindergarten, says 30 minutes to an hour. So once they hit kindergarten, there's a lot more curriculum for them. Don't feel like with curriculum, like you have to finish the book. I was just talking to a mom today about finishing books, textbooks and stuff. I know a lot of us homeschool moms feel like we have to get to the end of a book to say that our kid is finished. But really, in public school, there are probably less than 5% of teachers who get through a whole textbook in 1 year. Because a lot of the stuff at the end too is then revisited the next year at the beginning of the year. The teachers are teaching it again anyway. So it's not like your kid is going to miss out and not get to something. So don't stress about getting through everything super fast. That's always one of my tidbits I give to new parents, is do not stress about getting through a whole textbook in a year. And maybe not make it go through 2 years. Move on if you feel like they're ready to move on. Okay, then first and second grade said 45 minutes to an hour and a half. And I would say, in my classes at least, most of this instruction time when my kids were little was for math and learning to read. So a lot of the spelling and things like that come into play more when they get into 3rd grade and older. So when they were very little, we were doing very simple math. My kids use Saxon math, and I taught them to read. Actually, when I was a teacher, I was a math teacher in middle school. And one of the things I was so afraid of to homeschool was to teach my child to read. And I did it. All 3 of my boys know how to read. And I did it with a book from Barnes & Noble called Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons. And they were all reading after those 100 easy lessons. And some of them were not that easy. Some of them had some tears, but they still got through it, and they were all reading by the time they got out of kindergarten. So those times were for reading and math in my house. Now, we had more hours than this maybe when we were doing other fun things that were educational. Now, notice in 3rd to 4th grade, it jumps to 1.5 to 3 hours, and 5th to 6th grade, 2.5 to 3.5 hours, and then it goes up from there. So these may seem really small to those people who are used to public schools, but remember, you don't have to have all the transition. This is for instruction, like how much time you're spending in instruction. Remember, you don't have, in homeschool, you don't have the transition of having to take kids to the bathroom. They're not talking about that kind of stuff. They're not talking about lunch. They're not talking about walking your kids out to PE, you know, all the stuff that teachers have to do, getting your kids to quiet down. So really, it is enough instruction if you feel like that's not enough. You do not need to have your kids at your table, at your kitchen table, or at your desk for 8 hours of a day. I would not do that to your kids, okay? And while I was saying that, let's see, we're still kind of on how your school day should go, is where you set up in your house is another great thing to think about. Is for the most part, when my kids were young, we sat around the kitchen table for certain lessons. We, of course, sat on the couch for things like reading. We sat in bed. We kept on our pajamas sometimes. I had numerous pictures of my children reading books up in trees, even some on the cabinet countertops. I mean, crazy places they were reading. And that just gives them the freedom to go and enjoy their book without having to sit in a certain area like they may have to do in public school. You can also set up desks. When my kids got a little bit older, I'd say more like 4th, 5th grade, it was probably not until 5th grade when I got them desks to actually sit in, because I felt they were more independent to leave the table when I was done with instruction and go work on their own. They didn't need me right beside them. Lots of people want that desk as soon as they get to be a kindergartner, and it's not necessarily needed. Really, you don't need to have a kindergartner at a desk. They're not really doing anything that's all that independent at a desk. Now, if you know your kid would like that, then there's no problem with doing it. Okay, last, I think this might be my last thing I'm going to talk about, is some co-ops and sports and things like that. So Corpus is great. I've heard so many people say that they love the idea of our co-ops that we have here in Corpus. And we have a lot of them. So you kind of have to search, maybe Facebook, ask friends about different types of co-ops. Of course, this year is going to look totally different, but I'm kind of going off of once all this craziness is gone, is we have co-ops that have so many different things to do. We have extracurricular co-ops. We have that just meet maybe once a week, where moms help teach things, help with organizing the kids and all that kind of stuff. Then we have co-ops that are very educational and are more like a college private school where they meet on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and it's math and reading, and you know, where the extracurricular ones might have photography and cooking. So you may probably want to get your kids out there, and maybe not right now during COVID, but and a lot of the co-ops aren't meeting first thing in the fall. So, but you can find out from different people what's going on. The co-ops are a great place for socialization. And I've always had this asked of me, and all homeschool moms will tell you that you have people say, what about socialization? I didn't have that as on my list of things, which I should have. And my kids are probably have more socialization than a lot of public school kids. They always are at events. They go to co-ops. They have drama and plays that they are in. They do sports. My kids are not lacking socialization. And so there is plenty to do out there, especially in Corpus. If you live in some other city, reach out and try to find a homeschool group. That is the best thing that ever happened to us. My older sister actually homeschooled before I did. And so when I got into it, she pulled me into our homeschool co-op right away, not co-op, our homeschool group. And it's the best thing. It was the best thing for my kids. My kids have so many friends from our homeschool group. And it's not just kids in their age level or their grades. They interact with kids of all ages, which I think is great. And the older kids learn how to take care of and help with younger kids. So co-ops is a great thing to look at doing, but just joining a homeschool group is probably something that I would say is quite necessary when you're homeschooling. You get support. Here in Corpus, I am a member of HOST. They're part of who we're helping put on this conference. So you could Google HOST in Corpus, and it's a homeschool organization of South Texas. And they have many things that go on. We have dances for middle school and high school kids. There are many other groups. Belinda may tell you about a few other ones in Corpus that are going on. Some groups have sports. So that was next on my list was joining sports. Is we have football teams, cheerleading, volleyball teams, field track and cross country, which my boys did. I think there's baseball now for some basketball. All of these sports we have teams for them. Now with COVID, some of that stuff is starting up slowly. So and some of it has already started. I know some volleyball teams have already started. Cross country has kind of started running. So not competing, but practicing. So you can look into those things for middle schoolers and high schoolers. For the younger kids, joining a homeschool group helps you find field trips to go on. There's many groups that go on field trips. There's some groups that are only field trip oriented. Host has lots of things like that. They have a field trip person who puts on field trips once or twice a month and different age levels. So I think my kids have probably gone on more field trips in their lives than any public schooler has, because we were going on once or twice a month. And, you know, museums, all kinds of different things, farms, wonderful field trips that I know they wouldn't have been able to go to if they were in public school. Some other things that homeschool groups do for you is park days, just get-togethers. Remember, I'm talking outside of a COVID world. So park days were great when my kids were little. Once they got a little bit older, they didn't really go to them. But in elementary school, we went every single time there was a park day. And most of the time, I was the one leading them. So I was getting them ready. But my boys were ready to go. They wanted to see their friends. They wanted to play outside. And so that's a great thing that homeschool groups do for you. Things like art and music. There are art teachers out there that teach during the school day, like have art classes. There are music groups that meet to do choir or band or things like that that you would have to search for to find, but there are those things that are out there. And if there's not, you can always do find private teachers for those types of things to work with you. And sometimes if you're in a homeschool group, people who have older children interested in music or drama or things like that will put together just little groups at their houses and say, hey, y'all want to meet and do this? We've had people in our homeschool group say, hey, I want my kid to do a first aid class, so I'm going to set one up. They said 20 people could come. Y'all tell me who wants to come. So homeschool groups are great for that kind of information gathering and joining of being with other people. So so look for a homeschool group wherever you live. And here in Corpus, there are many of the homeschool groups. So don't say you can't find one. There's great ones out there. And some of them are very specific as to who they want in there. Some of them are very general and say, just anybody come. So you can find something that you like. And sometimes even in those groups, they have mom's nights out. So it's not always about the kids. It's about enjoying and finding other moms that do things that you're doing during the day. I think that might be.
Hey, Misty.
All I have. Yes.
We did have a question
okay.
asking recommendations for curriculum for high school. So I don't know if you'd go over a little bit of that, what you're using. See.
Okay. Well, my kids actually go to a co-op for high school, most of their high school classes, not all of them. And a lot of the curriculum that they use are Bob Jones books, which you can find used ones pretty easily. There are also some just online classes that are not as expensive as and time consuming for you as a parent to do. I know that I just looked at a few for math that were like thinkwell.com was one that had a bunch of high school math classes. And I think Teaching Textbooks has both the textbooks like you can do, or it has the online part of it where they'll teach you online. I don't have a whole list of those. But like I said, if you go into like Mardel, if you're in a place where Mardel is, they have their sections kind of split up a lot of times by grades. So you can go in there and kind of see in the math section where they have all their algebra curriculum, and there will be 4 or 5 different curriculums in there. And when I'm looking for one, of course, I'm a math person, so I'm turning it over and looking at what it covers, kind of looking through the practice problems to see how they're going to be doing that problem. So curriculum is kind of a hard thing to just say, hey, go and get this curriculum, because everybody likes something different. There's Easy Peasy is a curriculum. I think that's for younger kids, which I didn't really ever use, but I hear people talking about a lot. There's Classical Conversations. I'm not sure what ages that goes through. Becca is a good one, which I've already mentioned. Saxon is a good one. Really, you just probably need to go to one of the websites if you're going to buy curriculum. If you want to buy a textbook, and go to one of those websites I mentioned, like christianbook.com or rainbowresource.com, or you can even go to mardell.com, and you can scan through some of their curriculum. So for history, for example, if you're going to teach through high school, you kind of get your ducks in a row of what year am I going to teach which history. And so U.S. history is, I'm going to do that 9th grade, and then world history is 10th grade, and government economics. So then you can go looking for your curriculum, and don't feel like you have to keep it like Bob Jones every single year. You may find a government economic book is better and something else. And a lot of times, even at half price books, I have found the actual books that they are using in the public schools. I did that one year for my English grammar stuff. I just picked up a book that I remembered them using when I was teaching, and picked it up at half price book and used that for their teaching. So there is just so much curriculum out there. If you have something more specific in that, oh, I like this type of thing, then I would say get on with the group and start talking to all the moms about it, because the seasoned moms are great at pulling out what curriculum you are kind of searching for and telling you this curriculum does great at that. So great thing to put online, question to put online if you have something specific that you want to do. Just don't feel like you have to do the same curriculum. Like, don't think, oh, I picked Bob Jones for history and I have to do that for math. Don't feel like that. You pick what's going to work for your family.
Can you explain a little bit about the different kinds of co-ops?
Okay. Let me go right back to the curriculum real quick, because somebody just told me something. There's all-in-one high school has a free one, and Khan Academy Time for Learning also has high school, and Khan Academy is spelled K-A-H-N. Lots of people use Khan Academy and even use it just to help out. Okay, back to co-ops. So there are, I can't name all the co-ops because I don't even know which ones are going on still. And I don't want to put out certain co-ops, especially if there's people from other towns listening. But there are some co-ops that meet, like they're just meeting once a week, and I feel like it's a little bit maybe more for socialization, but also to help match up those moms who like are very passionate about, let's say they're really passionate about marine science, and so they teach marine science to different kids that come into their class, and it's not maybe a class, it's just kind of to get them interested in it. So there's those types of co-ops. There's some that are for elementary kids only. And then there are other ones that are very much academic co-ops, where you are turning in papers, you have homework, you take tests, things like that. So I don't know, Judy, if you think we should name off some co-ops, but I'm really not sure which ones are even meeting this year or not.
No, I think we've got a couple people from out of town on the thing too. So
yeah,
but yeah.
But you can also start a co-op. I've heard quite a few parents, moms and stuff talking about, because of COVID this year and all these co-ops not being able to meet maybe at churches, a lot of times they meet at churches, that they're going to do some classes just in their house with a few of their closest friends. And really that's how a lot of our big co-ops in Corpus started, was a mom putting together with 2 or 3 other moms, and it's just a few people in their homes, maybe rotating homes. You can go out and start something like that. So don't feel like, oh, I've got to always join something. You can start something if it's not there. I hear a lot of people say how much they wish they had Corpus's co-op, or not co-op, groups, homeschool groups in their town, but you can always start one in your town. It's pretty easy to find homeschool parents, especially nowadays, because so many people are doing it. So just put kind of some feelers out there. Are you homeschooling? Let me know if any of your friends are homeschooling, and get together some people if you don't feel like your city has enough to offer. You start it.
Nope, that looks like it. Thank you so much for coming on, Misty.
Yep.
And I am so glad that we got to listen to you and hear what was on your mind for us today. Let me switch out here. Bye. Thanks so much.